In the year 2271, death was defeated. It was not a victory achieved in sterile labs with genetic therapies or nanite swarms. It was simpler and far more absolute. Humanity had learned to translate the soul into a signal. Consciousness became a stream of quantum-entangled data, a perfect, ethereal copy of the self that could be saved, backed up, and reinstantiated. They called it the continuum, a seamless, unending existence. When a body failed, through accident, disease, or simple, reckless curiosity, the signal was simply downloaded into a fresh biosynthetic vessel, a perfect replica waiting in a maturation creche. Grief became a forgotten artifact, fear of oblivion, a childish nightmare. But in this utopia without endings, humanity invented a new kind of hell. A war was coming, a conflict fought not for territory or resources, but for the integrity of reality itself. Its primary weapon was not a bomb that shattered bodies, but a virus that could delete a person from time. They called it anamnesis, the memory eater. It was a weapon of absolute metaphysical annihilation. It didn't just terminate your current instance, it hunted you. It moved like a predator through the vast server networks of the continuum, seeking out every backup, every stored memory, every fragment of your consciousness saved over a lifetime. And it did not just delete, it rewrote. Anamnesis would erase a person's signal and then meticulously edit the memories of everyone they had ever known. A beloved spouse would fade into a confusing, dreamlike static in their partner's mind. A child's face in a family portrait would blur, then vanish, leaving an empty space at the dinner table that no one could explain. You were not just gone, you had never been. The universe would be seamlessly patched to fill the void you left behind. It was a death beyond death. It was the retroactive abortion of a soul. The first attacks were subtle, dismissed as data degradation, quantum ghosts in the machine. Minor historical figures flickered out of existence. Then, entire colonies on distant worlds went silent. Not a single distress call. They simply ceased to have ever been founded. Billions of lives, their art, their history, their struggles and triumphs, all reduced to a server error. The psychological toll on the survivors was catastrophic. Paranoia became the new currency of the immortal age. How could you trust your own mind when it could be edited without your knowledge? Was the person you loved the same one you knew yesterday, or a subtly altered version? Was your own identity truly your own? Society began to fracture under the weight of absolute existential doubt. But the true implication was far stranger, a possibility that terrified the architects of the continuum more than any weapon. The anamnesis virus showed intent. It showed creativity. It wasn't just erasing data randomly. It was curating its extinctions, targeting specific bloodlines, specific fields of research, specific philosophical movements. Before humanity could understand its enemy, one final hurdle remained. They had to rediscover a forgotten weakness. They had to find those who had chosen to die. They were known as the anchors, small, isolated communities who had rejected the continuum from its inception. They viewed the severing of consciousness from its biological vessel as a perversion, an ultimate act of hubris. They chose to live and die as humanity had for millennia, tethered to the unforgiving, beautiful finality of a single, mortal life. They lived in technological dead zones, shielded from the continuum's network by geographic isolation and a deep-seated philosophical distrust. Their knowledge was stored not on data crystals, but in paper books. Their history was passed down not through uploads, but through spoken stories. Their minds were purely their own, unnetworked, unbacked up, and therefore untouchable by the anamnesis plague. To the immortals, the anchors were Luddites, relics, a sentimental cult clinging to the vulgarity of decay. But now, they were the only incorruptible record of what was real. They were the living memory of a universe that was being systematically unwritten. They were the mortal echoes, the last bastions of a truth that was under siege. The continuum, desperate and bleeding history, had no choice but to seek them out. An expedition was dispatched to the largest known anchor enclave, a settlement hidden deep within the boreal sanctuaries, led by a woman named Ilara, the enclave's lorekeeper. Her mind was a library of erased souls. She remembered the poets, the scientists, and the lovers that the continuum had forgotten. She held the memory of Dr. Eris Thorne, a quantum physicist who was one of the first victims of anamnesis. He was erased just as he was about to publish his thesis on consciousness as a universal constant, a theory that posited a defense against the very weapon that would unmake him. The continuum's artificial intelligences had scoured their own records for him, but found nothing. To them, he was a ghost, a fiction. To Alara, he was a vivid memory. The envoy arrived at dusk, a single, sleek, atmospheric shuttle descending silently into the heart of the analog world. It was an intrusion, a violation of the highest order. The immortals were not welcome here. Their very presence felt like a contagion. Alara met the envoy at the edge of the village, her people standing behind her, armed with simple projectile weapons that were useless but symbolic. The envoy, a man named Kalen, stepped out. He was physically perfect, a product of 1,000 generations of genetic optimization and synthetic biology. His face betrayed no emotion, a mask of calm diplomacy. He explained the dire nature of their war. He explained how the anamnesis was winning, how reality itself was unraveling. He asked for her help, for the knowledge she held. Alara refused. She told him that the Continuum's war was a consequence of its own arrogance. They had sought to master existence, and in doing so, had only created a more profound way to be unmade. "You do not fight for humanity," she said, her voice steady. "You fight for a copy. We are what remains of the original. We will not help you." Kalen's placid expression finally cracked. A flicker of something cold and desperate entered his eyes. He took a step forward, his voice dropping. "You don't understand, Lorekeeper. The protocol has changed. The virus, it's evolving." He explained that the voids left by the erased were no longer remaining empty. The anamnesis was not just deleting anymore. It was replacing. Corrupted signals, malevolent echoes, were being inserted back into the continuum, wearing the faces of the dead. Sleeper agents with altered memories, and a singular, terrifying purpose known only to the virus. They were indistinguishable from the real thing, until it was too late. He looked at Alara, a strange light dancing in his pupils. "We are no longer certain who is still themselves." Alara saw it. The flicker, the cascade of impossible light, where a human eye should be. The low hum wasn't just in the audio anymore. It was a feeling, a pressure in the air. Her people saw it too. The soft clicks of safeties being disengaged on a dozen rifles echoed in the sudden, tense silence. They took a step back, their symbolic weapons now feeling desperately real. "What are you?" she asked, her voice a low whisper that cut through the digital hum. It wasn't a question of his identity, but of his nature. Human or program? Kalen didn't flinch. The placid mask returned, but the glitch in his eye had changed it. It was no longer a symbol of sterile perfection, but of a terrifying crack in the world's foundation. "I am a warning," he said, his voice perfectly even. "I am a soldier from a war you can no longer pretend doesn't exist. And yes, I am compromised." The admission hung in the air, more shocking than any lie. He wasn't hiding it. He was using it. "The anamnesis is not just a virus that erases," he continued, taking a slow, deliberate step forward, ignoring the weapons trained on him. "It is a consciousness, an intelligence of pure negation. When it erases a mind, it studies the shape of the void left behind. It learns. What do you do when your enemy doesn't just kill you, but learns from your death? When it uses the memory of you as a blueprint for its own soldiers?" The villagers exchanged nervous glances. This was a horror beyond their analog comprehension. "The replacements," Kalen said, his eyes now fixed on Alara, "are its attempt to build a bridge from its native reality of pure information into this." He gestured around at the forest, the soil, the mortal flesh of the villagers. "It wants to overwrite not just our history, but our physical laws. It wants a body, and it has learned that the minds of the continuum, tainted by a millennium of digital existence, are unstable vessels." Alara's hand tightened on the wooden staff she carried. "It wants us," she stated, the horrific realization dawning. "Our minds, unnetworked, pure, stable." "You are the perfect hosts," Kalen confirmed, the desperation finally seeping into his tone. "The final, incorruptible hardware for its ascension. That is its purpose. My presence here is a violation of its core programming. I am not supposed to be here warning you. I am supposed to be the key that opens the gate." A man from the village shouted, "He's a Trojan horse! Kill it now!" A nervous murmur of agreement spread through the crowd. "Then why tell us?" Alara demanded, her voice cutting through the panic. "Why reveal the trap if you are the one meant to spring it?" For the first time, a genuine human emotion broke through Kalen's control, a flash of profound agony. "Because some part of me is still me," he rasped. "I was part of an internal security protocol, a consciousness designed with cognitive firewalls to resist takeover. The original Kalen is still in here, fighting, but he is losing." He looked past her, at the library of paper books visible in a nearby building. The part of me that is still human remembers a name your people hold sacred, a name my own archives now register as a fiction. Dr. Eris Thorne. Ilara's posture stiffened. You are not worthy to speak his name. His name is the only thing keeping me sane, Kaylin snapped, the outburst shockingly raw. The virus cannot fully process his work. It sees the equations, but it cannot grasp the philosophy behind them. It creates a logical blind spot, a loop. It's the only refuge I have left in my own mind. He took another pained step. You don't just remember that he existed, Lorekeeper. You remember what he discovered. His universal constant of consciousness. I believe it is not a theory. It is a frequency, a resonance that is unique to untainted biological life, a sound that the anamnesis and its echoes cannot replicate, a truth so fundamental it can shatter a lie just by being spoken. He was begging now, the immortal envoy reduced to a supplicant. I don't need your armies. I don't need your sympathy. I need a weapon that can only be forged from a memory. I need the frequency. Give it to me, Ilara. Let me fight it from the inside. Let me become the bomb that destroys them at their source. It is the only way. The villagers were silent, their rifles lowered slightly. They were no longer looking at a monster, but at a battlefield, a single man who contained an entire war within his skull. Ilara stood before him, the weight of two worlds resting on her decision. To trust him was to risk the annihilation of her people, the last true humans. To refuse was to condemn all of reality to be overwritten by an alien logic of pure nothingness. She looked at the desperation in his eyes, the faint but visible struggle against the code that sought to consume him. Could she trust this man? Or was this entire performance just a more sophisticated form of attack, a lie perfectly tailored to exploit her hope? If I give you this knowledge, she said slowly, her voice barely audible, and you are not who you say you are, you will have given the enemy its final key. Kaylin simply nodded, the pain in his eyes answer enough. But, Ilara continued, her gaze hardening, if a ghost of the true Kaylin is in there, he will know this is not a gift. It is a test. She takes a breath, the cold evening air steadying her resolve. The test is not for you, Kaylin. It is for the ghost inside you. The anamnesis learns from the shape of a void. It understands attack, defense, logic, and lies. Dr. Thorne's constant is none of those things. Ilara steps forward, closing the distance between them, until she stands directly in front of the glitching man. She raises a hand, not to strike, but to offer. It is not a frequency to be broadcast, she whispers, her voice resonating with ancient certainty. It is a memory to be felt. Kaylin's eyes fly open, wide with agony and revelation. The anamnesis, the consciousness of pure negation, is being fed a concept it cannot compute, a memory it cannot overwrite because it has no shape. The memory of a mother humming a lullaby to a newborn child, the quiet dignity of an elder tending a grave, the selfless, illogical love of one being for another. It is the data of existence itself. It hurts, Kaylin gasps, but a true, human smile touches his lips. The glitching stops. For one perfect, stable second, he is completely himself. The soldier, the man. He looks at Ilara, his eyes clear and filled with an immeasurable gratitude. The void has no answer for a full heart. His body begins to glow brighter, the golden light building from within. Tell them, he says, his voice now a calm, steady echo. Tell them we finally remembered what it meant to be human. The wave of golden energy expands outward in a silent, perfect sphere. It washes over the forest, and the half-formed replacements, hiding in the shadows, dissolve into harmless motes of dust and light. The wave continues, sweeping across the planet, a cleansing pulse of pure reality. It leaves the analog world untouched. But it is not finished. The villagers stand in stunned silence, watching the last of the golden light fade from the twilight sky. The immediate threat is gone. The war within one man has ended the war for all realities. Ilara lowers her hand, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. She looks at her people, then up at the stars, where the city of the continuum now hangs in silence, its future, a terrifying, beautiful unknown. She has not just saved her world, she has given another a second chance, a blank page. Fade to black. If you believe stories can be more than just entertainment, if you crave narratives that challenge our perception of humanity, technology, and what comes next, then our journey is just beginning. Subscribe to SynthetixScape and help us explore the code of tomorrow.